Hannah's life is proof of a loving God. Stay tuned for part of her story. All right, so for those of you who don't know, this is my sister Hannah.
Hello.
And we're just going to have a discussion about her story. And yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't even know what else I could possibly say about it because it's not mine. And it's too interesting to like cap in just like one statement. But
You almost wouldn't believe it by looking at me right now.
no, I was thinking of like a headline for Instagram or whatever if we went live. And I was like, what would I say? 39 cardiac arrests, one single girl, or something like that. I don't know. Like, anyways, I don't even know. It would be impossible to just summarize it. But
Yeah.
I thought we'd do is maybe just get just a brief background on what is your medical condition, and then we can talk about what's happened, to you, kind of just some like highlight moments, and then we can kind of just I don't know take it from there. We'll see where God leads things.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes. So what is the medical condition that you have?
I have what's called idiopathic pulmonary hypertension.
Hmm.
It is a heart and lung disease. And basically what happened was when I was young, I my heart had to work harder than everyone else's heart had to.
Hmm.
And so it grew bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it wasn't the size of my two fists combined. And
Mm,
that made it hard on my chest, which then made me become diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary hypertension. No one knows why this happened, but basically, the artery tube in your heart, which let the blood flow through your body,
hmm.
um, narrow. So then the pump,
Hmm.
like the heart that pumps the blood,
Hmm.
has to work twice as harder to try to get that blood through that tiny little tube that's so narrow and try to
Right.
push all that blood to keep me alive.
Right. And it's called pulmonary because it's related to your lungs, right?
Yes, it's related to my lungs because, yeah, I don't know how to describe it.
And they don't know what caused it. So it's like there's no secondary cause that they can just treat to make your condition get better. You just live with it, right?
Well, they say that if you get a lung transplant, you no longer have pulmonary hypertension, but there's no actual cure for it. It's basically there. You have to live with it if you're not gonna get the lung transplant.
Right.
So,
Mm. And living with it you have been for how many years has it been since you were diagnosed? You were 5, right?
yes, I was 5.5 years old when I got diagnosed. We found out when I was in kindergarten. So,
Crazy. So how many years ago was that?
well, I'm 19 now. That would be 14 years ago.
Wow.
14 and a half years ago.
14, yeah. Yeah, because Kyra was a baby. So
Yeah.
crazy.
It's amazing how time flies. You don't even notice. Sometimes it feels like it's going by so slow, but in the blink of the eye, it's already the next year, and you're like, "Whoa, what happened?"
So true. So when you were first diagnosed when you were 5, like what was the prognosis for you? Like as far as like what did they say? Were you supposed to live a normal long life and grow to a ripe old age, or what did they say about your condition when they first found out?
Uh, they basically said I would only have 2 years to live at the most. It was very discouraging for mom and dad specifically because I wasn't really aware of what was going on. I was young and I didn't really understand and I didn't really want to understand
Hmm.
because like I wasn't interested in understanding my problem because I didn't want to feel that discouragement and that pain of like learning like what is wrong with me.
Right.
And so it also kind of like for my for our parents as well, like and my siblings, like I always felt that I was, you know, worrying them so much and I wanted to be there for them. So as a child, I just decided I would be the joyful, bubbly little girl that I always was and I still am,
Mhm.
to try to comfort them
Mhm.
and make them less sad, you
Yeah.
know?
And that's your middle name too. So,
Yes,
you have to
joy.
live up to it. Yeah,
But
so and you've met other children, with the same medical condition over the years, right?
yes, there are many of them out there. Some have it far worse than me. And I I'm amazed at how they can still dream so big about what they're gonna do later in their lives and still move forward and still try their best to get stronger every single day. You just see how they work in their lives, and even though it may suck and it hurts and it's disgusting and it's terrible, it's kind of encouraging at the same time because you look at them and you're like, they have it a lot worse than I have it. And even though I have the same problem as them, I can still be an encouragement to them and they can still be an encouragement to me,
Mm,
right?
yeah. And, like, what are some of the symptoms that you struggle with, like, when you're 'cause you kind of have good days and not as good of days, and obviously where you are at right now with your health is amazing considering what they said 14 years ago. I mean, never in a million years would have any doctor or nurse been like, "Oh, yeah, you have a really good chance of making it 14 years and, being in college and all that stuff." I mean, you weren't told those kind of things when you were little, not from the
No,
medical community. So,
no.
like, maybe just explain, like, what are some of the symptoms that you've struggled with apart from the full-blown cardiac arrest where you've had to have CPR?
Well, some of the symptoms I've had was I couldn't I couldn't speak very well. Like my muscles and my mouth were like super weak. So
Mhm,
I had to take like training to strengthen them in order to actually be able to learn how to speak.
mhm,
I've had found out that I was allergic to things that I really enjoyed and that I would get very bad rashes from if I ate too much of it. And I've also had low slower brain than everyone else. Like I can't think the same way as other people too. Like you could teach me something right now and I would take longer to process what you taught me and I would take longer to learn from it than what most kids would take to learn from it and learn about it, you know?
mhm.
And so like I have a slower learning processing thing.
Right, which is probably
And
it's probably a separate thing because that runs in our family with siblings and nieces and nephews
yes,
too.
and I've also struggled with heart pressures as well because like my heart pressures would go from extremely high to extremely level, but then it would just go back to high and I would have all this heavy breathing and I would have a bunch of chest pain if things got worse than it already was. And like the chest pain is I can't even describe how it feels because it's super painful and it is not fun to deal with at all. And I would have seizures and cardiac arrest, and most of it would be caused as soon as I had that chest pain.
Mm,
By the time that chest pain came, it was like, it's over. I'm not going to be able to evade the seizure or cardiac arrest that's going to come
mhm.
right in this instant.
Yeah.
And so that was always something I had to like watch for, especially
Yeah,
mom and
live under.
dad, because when I was younger, I was super competitive and stubborn, especially since I wanted to be like the other kids that ran around and did fun activities that I couldn't.
Mm,
So I wasn't very careful with myself. I mean, I was in some areas, but at the same time, like even if I got like frustrated or something, I would push myself overboard, and then that's when some would be when something would happen. And I've done that for all the way up until I was, I don't know, like 15, until I finally accepted the truth. So,
yeah. Hmm. And like there's been a number of times where like for maybe it's just a few days, but maybe it's weeks or even months where you just usually following a cardiac event or seizures or something like that where you've been greatly obviously your body is greatly weakened from an experience like that. And when you were younger, more often than not you would spend that recovery time in a hospital. Now that you're older, you're able to, sometimes just be home and rest and build up your strength because you kind of know what you're dealing with. But of all the times that you've been in the hospital, um, just recovering from these cardiac events that you've had and other things, how much do you think it adds up to? Like, if you were to add all the weeks and months that you've been there, how many years of your life do you think you've been at a hospital or at a Ronald McDonald House, which is where mom and dad would stay, right? When they were having to be with you for longer stretches when you were young?
it would be about 2 or 2.5 years total in the hospital, because like I would get better and then they'd say, "Okay, you can go home now." And then like a few weeks later, another event will happen, and we'd have to go all the way back to the hospital for another 4 months or something just to try to get back my strength.
Mm,
Because basically, my seizures and my cardiac arrests are like a reset system, and, what it does is it takes away all my strength in my body, just basically sucks it right out of me, and I'm basically this fragile person that can't hardly walk around the house because I have to slowly, maturely build up my strength in
mhm,
order to regain what I've lost in that moment.
right.
And I would struggle so much because I would be heavy breathing. I wouldn't be able to bend, like anything that has to do with bending or with my arms
Oh,
lifting
sure.
things. That just puts a lot of pressure and stress on my heart. So I always had to be very careful when I was building up my strength again.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, anyone watching this, if you have ever had CPR in your body, I haven't, so I can't speak to it. But if anybody does watch this and you've gone through that experience, I'm sure you would attest to how depleting that entire experience might be. Like, I think I've been with you, Hannah, three, I think three of the times they had to do CPR on you. I've been there.
Yeah.
My kids have been there for sure two of those times, once without me, once with me. And
Yeah.
and the first time you had a seizure before your diagnosis, I was also there for that. Um, you were even younger than 5 when you had that one, I think only 3 the first time they kind of
You
figured
were also there when I was older, cause. when we were celebrating something in the rec room for Christmas or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, we were all there together, and we got these little laser tag guns.
Yes.
And when we were running around playing laser tag together, I pushed myself to my limit and then had a cardiac arrest right in the.
For the theater, right? Oh, you're frozen.
Oh no!
You're
Oh,
back,
there
you're
we go.
back.
Yay!
Um, that was in the theater, I think. Wasn't that the last one that you ever had? The time
For a
you
while, yes. But then after that, I don't know. I can't. It's very hard for me to remember because I usually didn't care about when things happened in my life, what time they happened in the year and the date, because I usually just wanted to forget about it
right.
and move on.
Well,
But
I mean, that's a lot of, the 39 cardiac arrests. I mean, that's not all of the medical emergencies that you've had. There's been other times where you just had a seizure, but you didn't have a full cardiac event, or where there was
yes,
a medical
I
procedure that you were undergoing that caused some emergency situation.
I actually had one directly in the hospital once, not many years ago, and it was before I had this thing put in my heart to release pressure. Um, it was right before that actually, and I was doing the 6-minute walk like I usually do, and my face was turning as white as the hospital sheet, and my lips were turning blue, and I was totally awake, totally feeling fine, but heavy breathing. But I had no sort of chest pain, and it was almost like something was going to start without me even realizing it. I had no idea. I would have had no idea my face was white as the sheets and my lips were pure blue if dad wasn't there pointing it out to me
Mm,
because I can't see what my colors are
yeah.
I, on my own. I smell like I go in third person,
Really? You don't have that superpower? What?
No, I
Yeah.
mean in a video game I do, but but anyway, yeah, the doctor freaked out and came running down, and by the time they came down, I was totally fine. It was like, "Oh my gosh, what just happened here?"
Yeah.
But
There's been many instances like that where, yeah, I've been around or we've just heard about it where, mom and dad or somebody else has sounded the alarm bells like something is not right. You need to stop what you're doing. And, crises have been averted because of, paying attention to the signals that your body's given. But I'm just thinking like, you know, I mean, you'll probably not even be able to know for sure, but I would think that there's been more like 50 to 60 emergency type events that you have faced because there's been more than just the
yes,
cardiac arrests. And the one that I really wanted to talk about most specifically is because I'd like to segue from like information on like your just the overview of the challenges that you faced with your health issues. And I'd like to shift over to the experience that you've gone through as far as faith and hope for the future and spiritual stuff. And so in transitioning over, one of the things I wanted to talk about is I'm forgetting what procedure you had just underwent in the hospital, but there was a time when you crashed and they had to bring in like a whole medical crash team and they thought that you had died. Do you remember the details of that?
was it when I was getting my pacemaker done? Because I remember when I was doing my surgery for my pacemaker, and as they were putting it in my chest, and getting it started, I crashed in the middle of it,
Mm,
and a whole paramedic team had to come running in to try to save me, and my
that
doctor grew in like a panic.
that might be the time. There was one time though, I feel like it was before you got a pacemaker. I we'd have to talk to mom and dad about it, but I think maybe you were getting a heart cath test, like a heart catheter.
Yes, that one too.
And that one you crashed. I'm pretty sure that's the one where you crashed like for minutes. And like long enough that mom and dad were sent out of the room and they called me and all the other kids bawling on the phone like your sister's dead. We literally got that phone call. I remember it as clear as day. I remember I was with my friend having coffee and yeah, we were just visiting and Kyra was little, so I mean, I'm pretty sure this is before your pacemaker. So we can verify those facts and if we do share this video, we can post it in some type of an clarification in the comments. We'll make sure we do add some clarification once we get the details, but I was having coffee with a friend in Kelowna and my phone rang, my cell phone rang, and at that time you were having cardiac events, like, there was a number of years there where your cardiac events were, like, almost every month or 2. We'd get a call, middle of the night, middle of the day, "Hey, dad's doing CPR on Hannah right now," or, "We almost had to do CPR last night." Like, there was even one week, I think there was 3 things that happened in the course of a week. Like, when you were younger, it was really dicey. So I'm yeah, this would be back a ways, and I got the call and mom was just like, just wrecked on the phone, just almost screaming onto the phone, like, "Hannah's dead, we
You
can't get
froze.
her heart started." And I just walked away from where my friend was sitting in her kitchen, and I went to our front entrance. I don't know if you remember a house in Kelowna that we had, but a huge front entrance,
Yes.
and I just fell on the floor, like, I hung up the phone 'cause obviously they were waiting, like, hoping that the team would be able to get your heart going again and bring it back, and so they think she was just calling everybody, and so I hung up the phone and I just, like, fell on the floor, and I remember as clear as day exactly what I felt like. I mean, I was bawling obviously immediately, but just as soon as I started like crying and feeling this desperation, like this could be the end of my dear sweet little sister's life, and you would have been so young back then, this feeling of like such incredible faith like surged up at me and I was like, she's not she's not going to die, and I just knew it. And so then I just started shouting to God. My friend, I don't know, I'd have to ask her what she thought of this. Maybe Becky, I'll ask you if you remember this. But I just started shouting at him like, "She's not dead. She's not going to die. God, you're not allowed to let her die. You are going to bring her back." And I just started praying, and I just believed it. And then a few minutes later, they got her heart restarted. So that was the scariest moment for us collectively as a family because we all participated in that, and it was, I mean, you know, there's many, many stories, and you've met many people over the years who they haven't experienced like that, and they do pass away. Like that happens. You've known kids that have passed away, and it could have just as easily happened then, except for the fact that we know the power of prayer, and we know that God ordains life, and that if there's plans for your life, that no matter what's happening in your physical body or what the doctors are saying, God can do something completely different. And obviously it was his will to give you many, many years since then and many more to come. And so in faith, when we pray in faith, knowing what God has spoken to us, because without maybe hearing words that particular time, he spoke to me faith. That's what I got. And it rose up, and I mean, I just, like, I would have staked my life on it. How sure I was that, nope, you will be fine. And sure enough, you were. But I don't know. I mean, one day we'll find out how much it did. Our prayers have anything to do with that? Our faith in God and our pleas to Him because He loves us. Who really knows? Or was it just the way it was always going to turn out? I don't know. Yeah, who knows? But I don't even know what else to say about it.
Well, something I've learned over my life is I'm not gonna hide away in fear. I know I can be reserved sometimes, and I can play games all the time on my phone or hide away in my room and just kind of do my own thing. But the thing I learned the most was that I'm not gonna hide away my entire life and not meet people and not play my music for people on the stage in church for God, and I'm not gonna have any more regrets like I did in my childhood where I just kind of zoned out. And I have a lot of regrets, but I'm not gonna let fear control me.
Mm,
I mean, I could have a cardiac arrest tomorrow in the middle of college and mom and dad not be here. But I'm not gonna let that stop me, and I'm not gonna let that steal my joy away from me
mm,
because I know God's got me covered, and I can trust that He'll bring the right people in my life to help me, just as He's always done my entire life.
mm, mhm. I mean, yeah, time and time again, God has shown his faithfulness to you, but it doesn't mean you haven't suffered, like I mean, the 3 cardiac events I was there for that you had, I mean, the pain that you went through. I've never been through something like that. Like it's a pain
It's
and
worse when you're awake.
yeah, like just
I
seeing you go through that. I mean, I've never seen anybody go through that kind of pain, you know, definitely nothing worse anyways than that. So, um, it hasn't been easy. Like on one
Mhm.
hand, I'm sure there's people out there that have met you guys and our family over the years who are like, "Well, why did my kid die from something they had that was a diagnosis and you didn't?" Like here you are 14 years later when they thought you had, you know, months, days, weeks, maybe a few years, and um but it hasn't come without huge cost to you, like you've gone, what suffering is. Like, there's many
Yeah,
people
like
who think they know suffering, but you've experienced it in a very magnanimous way.
I've basically been to death's door 39 times, and it's never held its grip on me.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that time I was talking about, that might have even been the 40th time, because I
yeah.
don't know that that was counted in, maybe it was counted in your times of CPR. You'd have to ask, I guess, mom and dad, but it's crazy. Like when you start getting into the 30s, all of a sudden you kind of lose count because, most people don't anticipate in their life, oh, I'm going to have this like crazy medical crisis so many times that I better start keeping a log, like nobody does that. So,
Mom does. Mom does.
oh goodness.
Yeah, there's a whole book written with all the exact dates that it happened.
Oh, I mean, it's good
But
that she's kept it. I certainly haven't. I mean, I haven't been there for a lot
I'm
of.
thankful she did because, like, recently I've been wanting to write a timeline of my life to help me kind of remember the exact date everything happened. And, like, that way, if I were to ever share my story again to someone, then I would have it nailed and I would not miss something important or,
Yeah.
that they
Well,
might
even some
need
of
to
the stuff
hear.
we've talked about, maybe she'll have corrections. She'll be like, "No, no, no, wrong sequence." But that's okay. The stories are all truthful and accurate events. So, so what you were saying about you could have a cardiac event tomorrow. I think it's important to, maybe just throw in there that you did have a device put into your heart that is supposed to stop the pressure
Prevent.
from, yeah. Pardon me, sorry?
It's supposed to. prevent me from passing out and release some of the pressure in my heart, basically. And it only works when the pressure starts to build up and I start to have an event.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so painful to go through that process. It's like needle being stabbed in your heart and continuing to be stabbed in your heart until all the pressure is gone, and it hurts like crazy, and you're awake in the whole process. I'm so used to being knocked out in the middle of a cardiac arrest and
Right.
then only waking up in shock.
Yeah.
But I would, like, when you're awake in the process, it's like a big giant needle is being stabbed constantly and being pushed inside your heart whenever it starts to release the pressure, and it hurts so much.
So so when people who don't maybe understand, because it is a complex medical diagnosis that you have, it's not that common, though you've met many people because you can go to like PH, camps, or like you obviously are going to see specialists that are treating other people with your same condition. So you've met a lot of people, but most people I know, they've never heard of pulmonary hypertension. They don't know
Most
somebody who
people
does.
haven't. No, like,
Not a
you
common
could go
thing.
talk to someone in the middle of the street, and you could be like, "Hey, have you ever heard of pulmonary hypertension?" They will have no idea what pulmonary hypertension is because it is such a rare disease for people to get, and no one knows why it happens. Like, it could happen when you're an adult out of nowhere, and then you could be like, "How did this happen?" And you won't have all the answers, but there will be people out there who can help you through that if you give them a chance.
Yeah. Like so because most people don't understand it, haven't heard of it, they don't know the magnitude. And your story is unique. Like there's not a lot of people with pulmonary hypertension that have gone through the same types of cardiac events that you have. Like yours have been different. Like it's not like the electrical part of your heart has been stopping, at least in most of these. I mean, I don't know all the details, but it's not a typical heart attack. Like you wouldn't call these heart attacks like, someone who's in their 60s has a heart attack. Like the reason that the
No.
CPR is necessary is because it's a muscular and blood pumping failure. And so
Yes.
in a sense, it's like a heart massage to get the blood pumping back through your body. Because even with a pacemaker, when your heart is still electrically, beating, it still has at times failed to pump blood through your body. And that's where the CPR has come in. And so, because I mean, maybe there is somebody out there in the world who's had this happen to them 39-ish times or whatever. It's unlikely though. People, when they see you at face value, like they just see you walking around, they're just getting to know you. I mean, they would have no idea, of the
No.
reality of what you've lived under for 14 years. That, like, well, if you push yourself too hard, if you get too fatigued, if you don't take care of your body and watch your stress levels, you could get yourself back to this point of, being at risk of a cardiac event or seizure. Like, people don't understand that that's what you live under. So hopefully, if they watched this interview, they'll start to get a bit of a picture of like of what it's like to live under something like that, and how hard it is to be able to come to a place where you do just live in the moment and you make every day count and you don't let your joy get robbed from you. Because most of us, would go through a time, and you did too, of just being under constant fear. And so could you briefly talk about that? Like how many months or years of your life, or did it kind of come and go, that you would feel like you were just kind of living with this weight of fear of something happening?
Oh, so many times. Anytime the mention of going back to the hospital, that would be my deadline. No, I do not want to go back to that hospital. I want no needles, nothing. They're scary. and they're painful, and my arm swells up, and I don't want to go back to Remodulin because Remodulin was a needle that would basically stay in my arm for 2 months, and when you first put it in, your arm would swell for like 5 days because of the medicine
Mm.
and and the tape that we use, and it, oh my gosh, it's just
Yeah,
the worst progress.
pause there. So just so people understand. So it was medication basically through like a drip line kind of into your arm, but you'd have
Yeah,
to move the needle site around because eventually, the site of where that medication day in and day out was being delivered would start to have issues. You'd get rashes or whatever. So
and
you
get
then have to move
infected.
it again,
Yeah,
right? Sometimes even into your like stomach or whatnot.
yeah, yeah, we did it in my stomach a few times, but most of the time we just switched from arm. Like, I have scars all over my arm from those needles, and oh my gosh, I want nothing to do with it. I try to avoid it as much as possible, and thankfully there are medications out there, but they've been starting to fail me, so I'm hoping that I can last until, like, a new medication comes out that we can try,
Mhm.
or else I'm hoping that, like, these new herbs I'm taking are going to improve that, but I
Yeah.
want nothing to do with that needle anymore. No one wants anything to do with needles, honestly,
I'm pretty sure you had
but
the Remodulin needle system, which it was always there. I mean, it's like, it's not quite the same, but it's almost like it's more like having an IV in your arm that you just carry with you everywhere.
yeah.
And it had a lot of limitations. And you lived with that for what, 7 years?
Yeah, pretty much 7 years until the Selectropeg came out, and I was able to get it removed for 2 years, and then, it started not working, and then the amlodipine came out, and, more medication came out, and they're just working on some more now, so
Right. Yeah. So hopefully there's time to just kind of make some tweaks and whatnot and avoid that. Cause yeah, it was very limiting for you. I remember you'd go swimming, you'd have to put like a rubber band over your arm because you can't obviously get it wet. So
yeah, and if I went too deep in the water, the pressure of the water would lift the armband up, and water would get through to my pump
oh
and my needle.
and for 40 minutes there is a blip.
My word, it did it again.
Guess what? There's no recording of our whole last 40 minutes. None.
What?
No. No, it's gone.
Oh
It's
gosh,
gone.
I wasted tears.
You've wasted. Okay, I'm gonna give our watchers 40 minutes in 40 seconds. Um Suffering, significant suffering, crazy, crazy stuff that like it's horrific to witness. Hannah's endured it. But yet, on the flip side, God has given her many, many miraculous gifts of recovery and healing time and time and time and time again. So tough world, sinful world, good God. Wow. He's amazing. He's so powerful. And we talked all about that. We talked about what that journey's looked like, what we've learned, the fact that we are spiritual beings. We are not just our bodies, and that life is going on way past the 60 or 100 years or whatever that you get to live in this world. And we talked about having coffee in heaven. We were going to have coffee and we were going to talk about all the things that God did through Hannah, because our time on this earth is for us to hopefully choose Jesus because we get the choice. And then secondly, it's for us to participate with Jesus because once we choose him, we become one with Jesus. His spirit fills us, and he said we will do the works he did when he was on the earth. And he gives us the power to live the kind of life he did. Not perfectly. We're still in these human bodies in a fallen world, but our spirit is set free and alive with the life of Jesus Christ. And we get to participate now and be his hands and feet. And that's what Hannah is doing. That's what she desires to do. And that's partly why we did this video, to give you a chance, Hannah, to establish a foundation for why people should listen to what you have to say. because they should listen to what you have to say, because you've been through something that is very distinct and extreme, and it shows a lot of life lessons that people can learn
Yes.
without having to live the life you did and have up until this point.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. And yeah, I just I want I want people to understand that they have a journey of their own too. It's not just about me, it's about you guys as well. The question is are you willing to take the step to where Jesus can use you to reach other people? Is your heart prepared for that? That's the biggest question
Mhm.
for you guys because are you ready? Do you know God? Do you know Jesus? If you don't, then prepare yourself because he has a plan for you just like he has a plan for me and just like he has a plan for Jessica and just like he had a plan for mom and dad. He has a plan for you as well
Mhm.
to walk through a journey that can reach so many people's hearts. And you can also be the person to save people and bring them to the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
It's just are you willing to take that step?
Right. Well, and and that's the thing. Like some people, I mean, life is hard. It's very confusing. Like there's a lot of people that they don't understand that they're spiritual selves. They don't understand they are spirit, not just body. They don't know that there's a spiritual realm that, when you see evil things, it's because there's actually an active spiritual realm that affects things on this earth. They don't know those things. Their eyes are shut. All they see is the here and the now and the physical. And they think that when the light flicks off, that's it for them. And they don't know. But there are many people, and it's the majority of people who know the opposite to be true, which is we are spirit, not just body. And there is heavenly realms. It's not just one, but and there is good and evil, and it comes because there is light and darkness, and the light is Jesus Christ. And the goodness is Jesus Christ. The creation, the earth that we're, all so busy trying to save right now, it's his. He made it with just a word, really. You know, and and that's one of the things I'm so sad our video recording is gone, because we talked about that, about how Jesus isn't just like some new thing that popped up on the scene 2000 years ago. No, he is God, the creator. He is the word that spoke, let there be light. And there was light. That's Jesus. We just didn't know him by that name because God had not conceived himself in human flesh until 2000 years ago. So why did he do it? He did it because he loves us. And if you don't know his love, he wants you to receive his love, because that's why he created you. It's actually the missing thing that you're searching for everywhere, whether it be through just a really good time or through a certain relationship or something more extreme like drugs or trying to change who you are or whatever. The thing you're searching for is actually the very thing that gave you the breath of life in your lungs right now, the word of God, the light of God, Jesus Christ. That's the thing that our hearts are searching for, our souls are longing for. So in this world, we can enter into his love and we can receive it, and we get ticket to heaven. We have a friendship with God that we can build, and we have a whole eternity to do that. But if we choose to, we can actually walk as one with Jesus Christ now on the earth, even though it's broken and it's difficult, and we can be his hands and feet, and we can allow him to use us to be a blessing and a light to others, because he basically married himself to us. Like really what he did. It's a really cool thing. So there's lots more that God is going to teach you and show you about what that means for you, because you know if I could summarize for you, Hannah, I feel like, The real story of your life is this: God knew that for his heart to be complete, he needed a little Hannah joy. And he created you for his pleasure. And he created you perfectly and in his image. And he created you to be filled with his light and to be filled with his spirit and to overflow with his love and his joy to such an extent that it literally bubbled out of you and other people were just touched by your presence. And he did that not just for them because he loved them, but he did it also for himself because he loved you and he loved what you would bring to his heart that nobody else could. Only you. And so your life, though it has been difficult and has been a one of suffering, every time you talk to God, you point glory to God, you worship God, whether through song or just through making the right choice, even when it's hard, every time you do that, you are actually ministering something to the heart of God that he longed for from you. So you're fulfilling the purpose and the thing you're longing for, but you're also glorifying God and blessing God. He somehow, though he's God and he didn't need us, he didn't have to create us, he somehow chose to give this world to us and to give us dominion and to give us a choice. And he wants us to choose him, but we don't have to. But if we do choose him, we worship him and we love him, he chose to let us add something to the kingdom of God and to heaven and eternity to come. He chose to let broken human beings be part of that. And he wanted you to be part of it. And you chose to be part of it. And thankfully, you didn't choose to be part of it at the end when you're about to take your last breath and just go to heaven, which would have been great for you. Equal reward. Everybody gets heaven for choosing Jesus. But you chose him earlier. You chose him while you were still suffering, so that in your suffering and in these places of darkness where you have traveled, you could fellowship with him. He could make a table for you in the presence of your enemy of pulmonary hypertension, the presence of your enemy of, I just went through CPR and my body feels bruised because it was painful, in the presence of doctors telling you you won't live a long life, in the presence of fear. He made a table for you to dine with him, and he loved you and he filled up your cup to overflowing. And you have this long, long eternity, so much greater and bigger than this short time here. And he's using you, you know? And so where you are, he is, therefore there is light. Where you are, God is, therefore there is life. And even if the doctors say, oh, you're going to have to go back on Remodulin, or you're going to need a lung transplant, or, you seem to be getting worse, no matter what they say, he's proven you time and time again that it doesn't matter what they have to say. What matters is what he has to say. And he's teaching you how to hear his voice so that you hear directly from God. And and you don't fear what man understands, because you know that God's got your back and that you're walking in friendship with him, and it's all going to work out as it should. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just I have this faith that I know he's got my back, because he's gotten my back all 39 times of my life, more than that, really.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me wonderful friends. People have been kind to me, and doctors have been more willing to try to save me and be there for me, and they've been such great people. And although it sucks to be in a hospital, I know the doctors are just trying to do their jobs, and that they're trying to care for me and help me, and they do concern for my health. I want to love on them, and I want to be there for the people, whether that's my friends, my family, my siblings, people at the resort, people in the middle of nowhere who are going through whatever they're going through. I want to just love on them just as God loves on me and forgives me. I want to share that love with everyone else because I just I want them to feel noticed. I want them to feel like they're a part of this world and that they're not forgotten. No, those who think that they're not noticed, they're alone, they have no friends, they have no family. I believe that when you come to Jesus, He'll be your friend. He is your friend. He'll be your family, and He will give you the things that you need, whether that's a friend in person,
Mm,
whether that's someone who can just be there for you when you need them, or whether that's giving you the things you need to get through whatever you're going through.
yeah.
And Jesus, Jesus is your friend. He always will be, and he'll never leave your side.
Mm,
Just like even though I've sinned and I've deceived and I feel like I've been too far gone, he still waits for me and people still pray for me and I'm not gonna throw that away. I'm going to try to take my relationship with God back that I had lost when I was younger, and I'm going to try to strive and get stronger, even if that means I lose my strength once again. I know God will provide for me, and I know that He will heal me to the point where I can walk again and I can move forward in my journey and I can win the race that He has given me. And you should do the same.
mm. Yeah, right. And that's the thing. Like when I love the race analogy, because when people enter a race, they don't have the same set of circumstances, they some things are within their control. They can choose different running shoes and attire and whatnot. And other things are out of their control. Like they may have a medical condition, or they might have a limp, or they might have whatever it is, some type of limitation. Everyone in the race is different. They're not the exact same. And they all end off at different places. Some people make it all the way, some bow out partway in. Some people make it to the end first, and others make it to the end last. What the thing is that in the race that is life, when you're running it with Jesus and in relationship, knowing that your future is secure, the prize isn't your salvation. It's not heaven. It's not is God gonna love me. No, the entry fee was the prize. Like that was the entry fee. Entering into the forgiveness of Jesus because of His death and resurrection from the cross and from the grave, and His ascension into heaven at the right hand of God, the fact that He is God Himself, that He paid the price, He suffered way greater than you've ever suffered, way greater than I've ever suffered. And everything we go through as humans, He subjected Himself to that. He knows because He lived on the earth, still blameless because He's God. So because of that, when we receive it, we are forgiven. The penalty for our sin, and we all have it, is forgiven. And so now we get to run the race. You don't get to run the race unless you receive the salvation available through only Jesus Christ. But when you're running the race, it doesn't matter what somebody else runs. It's your race, and it's for you to run. And if you make it to the finish line of what you believe is the prize in your relationship with the Lord, if you make it to the finish line here on this earth, so be it. Good for you. Run as fast and as hard as you can. If you don't, despite all your best efforts, so be it. You ran as hard and as fast as you can. If somebody else chooses to give it a half effort or to bow out of the race partway in, then so be it. It's their race to run. But as for you, as for me, the prize is the glory of the Lord. Now, I want it now. I run for that. I run for Him to be shown through my life through my challenges, him to be shown to others for the beauty and the goodness and the light that is Jesus Christ, that is our creator. I run for that. And I run for God to be able to use me however he wants, no matter that what that needs to look like. I mean, I don't know my future. Maybe I'll die for it one day. I don't know. You know, I want him to do whatever he can, his greatest work through me. And it's not because of me, because of him. I want him to do his greatest work through me as he can possibly do, no matter the cost, because I love him so much. And the more I run, the faster I seem to be able to run. It's the craziest thing. It's like the opposite of a human race, right? Like you in life, your body gets tired as you continue running. But as you run after Christ, the faster and harder you run, the more strength he gives you. So you can run faster and harder. And the more strength he gives you, and you run faster and harder. And you know it's not your strength because that's not humanly possible. It's the life of the Holy Spirit of God at work in you that allows you to continue running faster and harder and faster and harder the longer you run. It's it confounds logic. It's beyond this world.
Yeah, it truly is, and I think we just need to seek him, and then he will be found. That's the first step. You just gotta decide to make.
Yeah, I like it. It's very true. And then, like when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to choose to think about God or what he wants you to do with your day. Like if if you're forgiven and you love him and you're walking as best you can, and you miss out on something like that, you forget to think of the Lord or whatever. It's not like he's like, bad kid, how dare you looked at your cell phone before you talked to me, you didn't forget yesterday, what's wrong with you? Like he doesn't do that. Like there's no condemnation because we are in Christ Jesus. All that there is that we just missed out on another moment to experience and participate in the glory of the Lord. And I mean, life is tough. Sometimes we're just busy and things are tough, and you don't always think about God all the time. But the more that we do, the more that we invite him into the small things of our life, washing the dishes, laying in bed at night, when our eyes flick open in the morning, the more we do that, the more strength and blessing he gives us. It's for now, like, because it's available to us already, but we're tapping into it. And I just want to tap into it more and more and more and more and more until hopefully I always am. That's the goal. But
Yep.
hmm.
I agree.
Well, we started talking at 2:00 and now it's 3:48.
Yes, I'm
But,
hungry.
oh yeah, it's your dinner time soon. Perfect.
Yes, it is. But
Well, there you go. I mean, I think this is good. It sucks that those 40 minutes are gone.
yes, I
Uh,
cried in that video. Now I'm gonna
no,
feel embarrassed.
we were so much more real and raw in some ways. But I mean, this was a good conversation. It was much more like pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, so true.
The last one was a little slow times, emotional.
Yeah, yes. Uh,
Well, to summarize it up, you're a miracle girl, and you're such a delight to God, first of all, but to all who know you. And without your story being what it is, without the circumstances that you've had to work through and face, you wouldn't have all the things to say and do that you now have. So even in that, there's been blessing, because your desire is to experience God more and to be used by God. Well, guess what? He's got a whole heck of a lot to work with. So that's pretty cool. Some people maybe don't have that, and maybe you wouldn't have had all of this. So God's going to do cool things through it. And hopefully, now, like, talking through this way and just kind of talking more and more and more, the message that God wants you to speak, hopefully that will become more and more clear to you, and you'll feel more boldness in that, because the beautiful thing is that it doesn't matter like how we judge ourselves. God just sees us as his precious child. And all he wants is for you to make good on your word. You said to him, God, I want you to use me. So make good on it somehow by doing something. And he'll give you all the words you need. He'll give you the strength you need. He will give you the direction you need. And he will teach you and grow you from there with his power.
And that goes the same for everyone else. You just have to find him, seek him, and he will reveal himself to you, and he will have a plan just made just for you to reach others as well. It's not just me.
Mm-hmm. No. Well, thank you for sharing. And yeah.
And thank you for inviting me.
Well, we are sisters, so it's only been what, like 5
Yes,
years we've been talking about doing this?
I know, 5 years.
Yeah.
We've been so
Interview.
busy, and we never really had. And when we did have the chance, we completely forgot about it.
I know you were living like right across the parking lot for what, 4 months?
2 months to be exact.
Okay, so 2 months, whatever.
Yeah. I was
Felt like
going
4, I
to
guess.
stay for 4 months, but then my health kind of went down, and
Right.
so then I needed to leave. But
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know that's not why. It was me, wasn't it? It was because
no,
annoying.
no,
I just
no, don't ever think that.
fine.
If it were you, I would have directly said it to your face. I would have been completely honest. I
Sure.
would have no, I would have not been scared, to be honest with you on that kind of thing.
Oh man. All right. Well, it's been a slice. Go have some.
Yes. Yes. Think about it.
Oh man. All right. Love
But
you.
love you too. Bye.
Bye.